You are now watching Believe. Do you believe?
Hello and welcome back to Believe in Arizona State. I am your co-host, David Coleman, along with my dear friend, ASU Consensus All-American and three-time All-Pro with the Cincinnati Bengals. And we're both hurting Bengals today, Bengal fans. My dear friend, David Fulcher. Hello, David.
Morning, my friend. How are you?
I noticed that you are draped in I don't know how to say it, but you're draped in light. And the only thing I can think of is the heavens are shining down upon you after the stellar upset win by Arizona State over the Washington Huskies.
You're right, man. I'm here in my office and I've got these 12-foot ceilings and I closed the blinds and the Lord is shining right now on me, saying, you know, what a great victory the other day down in Tempe, and I'm trying to get rid of it, but I said, you know what, I'm not going to get rid of it. I'm going to let him shine on me, and hopefully it will continue for the rest of the year.
I don't believe in coincidences. I would let that light shine. Honestly, it's kind of all around you. It's not blocking you. It's not blocking your face, and it looks great. Giving Pro Camp some love today, I see.
Oh, yeah. I forgot to put on my ASU shirt, man. I was up walking my dog and came back in here, man, and sat down and realized, oh, I don't have on my Arizona State. So Pro Camps, I'm giving you a little love here, man, but that's all good.
You and I were talking and texting late into Sunday night as we watched our Bengals fall to the Baltimore Ravens in a tough one. And so I know that we were both up pretty late. It's good to see you this morning. And what a nice podcast for us to have today following what I think we both thought they had a chance.
Oh, yeah.
Boy, they followed through. There's some exciting things to talk about today. Did you expect it, David, when you saw that game this weekend? Did you expect us to be talking about a win today?
Well, what is funny is that, we're watching, kind of like watching highlights, because obviously the game didn't come on as much as I wanted to, and got on the Arizona State website and tried to find it out. But, there was a different, even when I talked to my daughter, Kayla, there was a different atmosphere in that stadium that day. It was almost like Washington came in, not even ranked, just the Washington Huskies football team came into that stadium, and our ASU football team just played football. The basics, the fundamentals. They just played football. And I think when Washington realized that Arizona State was playing football, it was a little bit too late for them. And then Arizona State had nothing really to lose. I mean, all they had
talked about that the week before.
Yeah, they had nothing to lose.
About that.
And normally, Dave, a team that has nothing to lose sometimes plays bigger than they normally should. And right. I think this Arizona State football team did that, and Washington found themselves in the football game, but it was too late.
For the second time this year, I saw an attitude play out. I saw it in the first game of the season, which we know is against a lesser opponent.
Yes.
I saw it when I watched this game, and it was not in our house. And I've heard you say that. I think I heard Joe Kelly say it. I think I heard Thurman say it.
Yes.
I've heard people go, not in our house. And it looked like they played with that mentality.
And when you're, and we're probably going to talk about it as we go on, when your starting quarterback goes out and you bring in a backup, and I've been there before. We're talking about Thurman Thomas and a couple of podcasts before. Oklahoma State comes into Arizona State, and we're ranked like in the 10 or 11. And Oklahoma State ran us out of the stadium because we lost our starting quarterback.
Yeah, Thurman let us know about that.
Yeah, he let us know. Yeah, and sometimes when your backup quarterback comes in, everybody's going, "Oh man, I sure hope and pray that he can get it done." And oh my gosh, what an outstanding game that this kid, that relief pitcher who comes in and then strike out, 6 or 7 batters. And then your offense says, all we got to do is put points on the board. We got a chance to win. And that's exactly what happened in this game.
But David, let me ask you this question. You've prepared, you're back at ASU, or you're with the Bengals. You're going through your meetings all week. You have prepared for an opponent. A quarter goes by, and by the way, Emory was 7 for 9 for 59 yards. He wasn't
bad
in that game.
Not bad.
He was having a nice game. He just took a shot and had to leave the field for safety and health reasons. But here's the other team. Here's Washington has been practicing all week, thinking Emery, he's out. Now they get Trenton. Tell me about that from a defensive back standpoint, from a defensive meeting standpoint, from the prep you've done all week. Did that change this outcome?
Oh, it did. It did because, we're talking week 6. We're talking 5 games of one quarterback, you know, trying to get his reads, trying to get his steps, trying to get the things that he does. And all of a sudden you bring in a person that we've never seen before, have no film on. So now all of a sudden you're going, okay, so what does he do? What's his best? What's his tendencies? His 3-step drop is the same depth that Emery has. Does he get rid of the football faster? Is the ball slower? Can he run like Emery? So now all of a sudden you have to adjust. And Washington didn't have enough time to adjust to that, even though he played the majority of the first half and then all of the second half. So you have to make halftime adjustments. We always talk about that. People have to make halftime adjustments to be better. Well, it was kind of too late because Arizona State's offense knew what they were getting, and sure enough, they did what they did.
I have to tell you, I was very impressed with Trenton Bourguet. His calm, his poise, his stepping up in the pocket when there was pressure. The couple of times he needed to roll out. It was, if you didn't know any better, we were talking about last week that if you didn't know any better and you looked at the sidelines, you couldn't tell that was an interim head coach. And I have to tell you, if you just happened to, let's tune in and watch Arizona State play Washington, and you didn't know either team, you'd be going, what a nice quarterback they have. You wouldn't have known he had just stepped in because the first-string quarterback got hurt.
And
you noticed that as well?
Yeah, and when you talk about his stats, he was 15 for 21, 182 yards, 8.7 yards per pass, 3 touchdowns, quarterback rating 93.9. Backup quarterbacks, when they come into the game, probably don't have them kind of numbers. He missed 6 completions throughout the rest of the game that he played in. And once again, this young man, who I believe is a 5th-year senior, walked in there and took care of business as if he had been a starter his whole career.
Right.
But once you play football, Dave, all you want is that opportunity to play. And he got that chance and he did what he did.
And you said last week, look, we looked last week and we had 6 yards rushing in the previous game, and you just went, that's not going to happen. Kayla got on and said, that's not going to happen. And you came right back and said, look, we have to have X touching the ball about 20 times, getting at least 100 yards. What did he have? 23 carries, 111 yards, a rushing TD, a receiving TD. Yeah, it was exactly as you kind of scripted and said, if we're going to be in a game against a quality opponent, these are the numbers we have to have, and they hit them.
And when you have those numbers, Dave, 23 carries. So let's just say 23 carries in this game. And of those 23 carries, let's go time of possession.
Right.
How long is Arizona State having the football that Washington doesn't come on the field? See, if I'm the head coach, I want to establish the run before I throw the football. If you stop my running game, then I'm going to have to throw the ball. Correct. But if I can get my star running back like X 15 to 25 carries in a game, it puts Washington's offense on the sideline for a big time of not being on the field.
Correct.
And so you can control the game with the quarterback who's keeping the ball in play. The clock is being run down by your running back who's carried the football 23 times. Let me tell you something, if X doesn't carry the football more than 20 times a game, then we got a problem. And against Utah, he probably had like 10 carries. When you're behind the sticks, when you're behind the chains,
it was a different script. They were behind.
It's tough. It's tough. And so when you get that, you're not going to get the things that you want, but yet they control the Huskies, and that's why they won that game.
And Ghana was 4 carries for 39, basically almost 4 for 40, 10 yards a clip. David, you've changed my – I have a friend who has a disability. When I walk around the world now, I see the world through his eyes. He uses a wheelchair. You've changed my football perspective. And darn you, I don't watch games the same way. But I was thinking of you, and here's why. Okay? You're a stats guy. You love stats. You're always looking at them. So, stats man, this is what was going through my mind. Michael Penix Jr. was 33 for 53 for 311 yards, but 0 TDs and an interception. Now listen to some of these stats. Washington had 324 yards passing, 134 yards rushing. We outran them. 32 first downs to our 23. Total yards, they had us 458 to 397. We had 10 penalties for 87 yards. They only had 4 for 36. Each team had 1 turnover. Time of possession featured Washington, just under a hair under 32, and we were just a hair over 28. Now, if I told you, if we were sitting here discussing a loss, you'd go, see, we lost all those categories except rushing. Isn't it interesting that none of those mattered and we pull out the win?
No, it doesn't, man. Like I told you, if you can control the football, control the game, you got your third, I want to say he was our third string quarterback. He gets into the football game, and guess what he does? He does not make mistakes. He didn't know it, no turnovers. Matter of fact, we didn't have a turnover in the game offensively.
Right.
So that when you don't turn the football over and you can win the turnover ratio, which Washington gave us a turnover, you know, those make a difference. And remember that one turnover was an interception taken back for a touchdown. And what's the difference of the game? 7 points. That turnover is the reason why we won that game.
Take me through the mentality of the team right now. Take me through the mentality of that interim coach who now has a bye week to prepare. Got a bye week coming up. 2 weeks from now, we know they've got Stanford, which we will talk about. But boy, have things turned around since Eastern Michigan.
It has. I mean, it's turned around. And I think, you know, these football players, this is where I believe that Arizona State is in an okay position. The only difference between now and 5 weeks ago, there's a different head coach. The coach that's there now, he's been there. The players know who he is. He now has a more visible and vocal role in what happens to this football program because he's the interim head coach. So the players are still playing football. It's just there's a different bus driver. That's how I put it. The different bus driver. And that guy who's driving the bus right now may approach it a little bit different than the last head coach. So players, are they playing for him? And here's the thing. People say, why can't kids just play for the coach? Well, you don't play for the coach. You play for yourself and your teammates.
Yeah, you play
and
for
if
yourself.
you continue to keep playing and you got a new leader, all the new leader is doing, he's just saying the same thing the other coach did. Let's win. Let's do our job. Take care of your responsibilities, and we should be okay. And you know what they're doing? They're taking care of their responsibilities. And once again, it's against Washington. We don't know what it's going to look like against Stanford, but to beat Washington at home gives you some momentum going in. And now you got those guys who might be beat up, might be injured, that could come back after 2 weeks worth of rest.
Right.
They'll be ready for Stanford.
And I sent you Stanford. I'm going to click on it here so I can see it. I sent you Stanford's upcoming schedule.
Oh, I know.
We have a bye week. They play Notre Dame this week at Notre Dame. Then they play us. Then they play UCLA. Then they play Washington State, who's obviously they're quite a team. I saw them play this week.
Yeah.
And then they play Utah at Utah. I'm not sure there's a tougher stretch for any team in America than those 5 games. And we get a nice bye week, so we get to watch them play Notre Dame, probably on national television, of course, with Notre Dame's schedule and their contract. And then we get to play them. Wonderful time there. And what's that do for a team? We can watch them play this week. We can watch them play on national television. No, they just came off a loss. What does Arizona State do as they watch that game?
Well, you know, one thing you don't want to do as a player, you hate bye weeks because you want to keep playing week in and week out.
Especially after an upset win, right?
Yeah, you don't. Yeah, after that win, you got the momentum. You want to go play, and now you're going to cool off the jets. Let everybody sit back and relax a little bit. But to sit back and watch Stanford play Notre Dame, if I'm the head coach, I think Saturday, whenever that game comes on, we're all at the stadium together, or we're all somewhere watching that game as a team, and just trying to build for momentum. And that way you could watch your opponent, even though we're going to watch the films of Stanford Notre Dame game, going to go back and watch Stanford's last game before Notre Dame, you know, because you're going to pick up some tendencies and pick up some things that are happening. So this is where the student of the game comes in, because now you have to prepare. You have to watch what's going on so that when we are ready to play Stanford in 2 weeks, everybody should know what they need to do. If I'm a safety and I'm covering tight ends or running backs out the backfield, I'm watching those. I'm watching those players. Emmitt Smith's son is a running back at Stanford. Emmitt
Right.
Smith from the Dallas Cowboys. If I got to cover that kid coming out the backfield, I am studying him right now all the way up until our game to know exactly what he's doing so that I'm prepared when we play them in 2 weeks.
And what did you keep we were watching the Bengals game last night. We were watching people get open. I think you texted me 3 times, stay with your man.
Stay with your man, man.
With
Stay with your man. You know, here's the thing too, talking about that Bengals game last night, I know we're getting off of it, but you know, Lamar Jackson's favorite target in the red zone was their tight end. The first touchdown that was thrown in the game in the red zone was the tight end.
He was as wide open as you are sitting there right now.
And I couldn't understand that. I saw a guy wearing number 33, which I don't like to see guys wearing 33 and messing up. But this guy's wearing 33. He's covering the tight end, and he's supposed to be on him, and he let the tight end run right across his face. Touchdown for them. So, you know, when you have a specific responsibility, do your job. If you do your job and the other 10 guys do their job, we're going to be successful. But when one guy messes up, and it does, and it hurts you, and that's what happened to the Bengals last night.
Okay. Scott, welcome to the program.
Yes, sir. Welcome.
Thank you very much for having me. I appreciate it.
Scott, instead of me going into a long diatribe here, give people just a brief synopsis of your most recent history and why we'd be having you as a guest. I know that you've been a head coach, you've been an assistant coach, you have developed an amazing system for recruiting and training athletes. So let everybody know kind of what you're all about, and then we'll get into the rest of the podcast.
Yes, sir.
Well, first, number one, thank you both for having me. I mean, it's easy when the host is named David, my buddy named David.
That's it. Yes.
For me. You know, I've had 20 plus years as a college and high school football coach, predominantly out of Western New York, where I was blessed to not only play, but eventually coach at the University of Buffalo, mostly in player development and recruitment. And, you know, having the opportunity to see what we call diamonds in the buff, right? Western New York is not a very highly recruited environment. And yet our time under like Coach Turner Gill, who brought me in, you know, legend from Nebraska. And then I was carried over with Coach Jeff Quinn, you know, who ended up going back with Brian Kelly to Notre Dame. You know, we had to make best, you know, kind of like what Arizona State did, you know, coming off the bench, both with a head football coach and a backup quarterback, you know,
Yes.
redshirt, to get such a great win. If I read correctly, the first time they beat a top 25 with a first-time head coach since
Yes.
1980.
Yes.
Wow, that's fantastic. So that's the kind of football I'm used to. I've also been a head football coach at a junior college called Erie Community College. So I've had a ton of opportunities to, you know, speak with people that weren't the 5-star kids, weren't the heavily recruited kids, but we had to see the potential in men, and it's about development. And I still think it's about development, even though you got this amazing thing. I don't know if it's good or bad, the transfer portal,
Yes.
but coaches have to adapt. And I think that that's one of the things that I was really tapped into. So when I was done coaching or during coaching, I was working with all these unique people that, you know, like a young man named Khalil Mack, for example,
Yes.
who was brought in by Turner Gill, and I had a chance to work with as just one of the finest guys you'll ever meet. But he wasn't a highly recruited, you know, guy because he'd gotten injured, you know. So one of the gentlemen that was recruiting him eventually came on to Turner Gill's staff, and they just did a beautiful job developing him. But obviously he's done a great job since then. So my goal was always, the focus was to find the hidden potential in people and some way get that to the surface. And I did really well with that. And so I started to learn about what I was doing and formulated certain things and realized that everybody's got their own, you know, their own little combination to their potential. And that's kind of what Ubring co-practice. Thank you for alluding to it, but that's what it's called. So it's constant recruitment of the potential of a person through how they communicate. And that's essentially what I do.
Wow, that's pretty good, Coach. Let me. So I'm going to throw something in there because, you know, I grew up in South Central Los Angeles. Went to Fremont High School. Played around some outstanding athletes, and Eric Davis played for the Reds. Joe Strawberry played for the Yankees and the Mets. And I didn't have the recruitment or the financial possibilities of working out. All my stuff happened out on the streets. You know, I swung a baseball bat in the streets. I threw a football in the streets. I wasn't highly recruited, and I went to USC and UCLA. They wanted me to do certain things, and I wasn't the best student out there. And Arizona State kept following me, and gave me a shot. So as a player 35, 40 years ago, working out, it was, you know, grab a dumbbell, run up and down the streets, go to the park, you know, just run and do whatever, eat mom's food. That's how I gained weight. I didn't gain weight by lifting weights. How do you tell a young man today, based off of the stuff that's out there, good, bad, or ugly, because, you know, players are using this, players are taking that. I didn't do those things. I just, like I said, I gained weight by eating my mama's food. I got muscle by picking up the trash and moving things around in the house. What do you say to a kid today that is being recruited by some of these major schools, and some of these major schools might be doing some illegal stuff, but you know from your heart and the things that you do, how do you attract the kid to you in the way you get it done?
Well, the way I was brought up was, you know, my dad would always say, "You dance with what God gave you." And I played Division III football that went to Division II football back in the late '80s, early '90s, which was a really hot time of, you know, performance enhancement. And,
Yes.
you know, a lot of the guys, I would tell them from sincerity, because I've lived long enough to know that every one of my buddies that did that stuff back in the is either no longer alive to be my buddy, or they're in such bad medical shape
Sure.
that they're aged beyond their years.
I knew
And
you were going there too, man, because I have seen it. I've seen people do it. And then people used to say to me, man, I didn't even take the whey. I didn't even take powder. I didn't even put that stuff in the shake. I drunk the shake, just a plain shake. But I understand what you're saying. Yes.
yeah, so I would tell these young guys today is that, you know, mostly we have to keep perspective that, you know, you might have roughly 400,000 high school seniors this year that are playing the game. There's 20,000 freshman roster seats across the country.
Yes.
90% of those have nothing to do with scholarship or academic support. So, you know, the 6% roughly that get to play, you know, any type of college football have to factor that in. So really, not everybody can do this. And I think that that's something that, if you're going to do it, your work habit and your ethic has to be exceptional. I don't care like what you do. If you're running hills because you live in Virginia, if you're running in the desert because you live in Arizona, whatever you have to do to be better than somebody else, one repetition at a time, preparation, repetition, rest and recover, prep. And that's what I teach kids. We don't, you know, there's no other way of doing it. That'll keep it, because if you do anything like right now, before you even go in, you might be 275, 280 pounds of, you know, muscle and chemicals. But by the end of camp, you're going to be back down to 240 pounds, and everybody's going to know, you know,
as a kid, when I was growing up in LA, my dad actually took me out of Los Angeles to a suburb called Westchester, California. And because I was just, my potential was just as good as my buddy's potential, because I didn't want to outdo my buddy. So when my dad took me to Westchester, and when I say Westchester, the baseball team I played with, it was 15 kids on the team. There was only one black kid, and that was me. Mm. And I saw these kids perform. I saw these kids run. And then my dad told me, if you want to be the best, then you need to outdo your player. Now, don't get mad. They can't get mad at you because they're not fast as you are. Right. So then I played a year there with them. I came back to Los Angeles. All my friends said, man, I can't believe you coming back and play with us. When I got there, and my dad told me, you play your game, not their game. So when I got back out there, I was 2 steps faster. I hit the ball alone. I did all these things. And then my guys used to look at me. I said, listen, if we're going to be the best, get on the bus with me. I couldn't go backwards. I had to go forward. So it does make sense when an athlete is trying to be his best, that he has a leader in someone like you, someone who is giving the right advice, that listen, if you're going to be the best, you can't worry about the rest of them.
Right.
You have to
Right.
take care of your business and do your job.
Scotty, let me ask you a quick question.
Yes, sir.
I'm always interested when a great man like yourself coaches and enhances and touches greatness as well. Take yourself back to Buffalo, take yourself back to coaching Khalil Mack. What was the first thing you saw that made you go, okay, this kid's got some potential? And what, if anything, makes him or made him a little different? In other words, there's a lot of parents watching this podcast, listening to it on Spotify. They're raising young athletes. What did you notice? What did you see? What would a school see? What should they be enhancing in their children?
I think that's a really important thing, because when I talk about recruiting never ends. You know, most college coaches think that when you recruit them, you get them through the front door, then reality hits, right? And it usually does, because you recruit them for 5 histories, right? You recruit them for their athleticism, their academics, their social, their family, and ultimately their medical, right? To make sure that they're good enough to play. But when you see a guy like Khalil Mack, what few people don't know about Khalil is how creative he is off the field. The guy thinks in many different, it's almost tangential, right? I mean, like, he can carry on multiple conversations, keep that smile. He had an ease about him. But when you turned on that, if you ticked him off, you didn't just see Khalil Mack, the athletic, fluid athlete. You saw somebody that had determination as well. And I think that that's something that really set him apart. You know, his jersey number, he wore the jersey number 46, because that's what he was ranked in Madden as a linebacker.
Wow.
That's why he picked that. He picked that to show the world that they were wrong. And that was really the most unique thing about him, is that he was not going to set himself apart because I'm the best, like so many young kids are trying to do today with self-promotion. I get it. They're emulating. They're just mimicking what's out there, right? But
Right.
Khalil, what set him apart was he said, I am this, and I'm going to demonstrate it by what the other David was just talking about: hard work, outworking, and knowing what your gifts are and sticking to them and trusting them.
David Fulcher, does this sound familiar? Is he talking about Khalil Mack or you? He's talking about the same human being.
And, you know, and I believe he is, because, you know, coming out of Los Angeles, I was always told I wasn't going to make it. I wasn't going to be nothing. And I don't know if I wanted to go out there and prove it to people that I was better than that, but I wanted to prove it to myself that I wasn't going to be that guy that people said I was.
Right.
You know, I come into the NFL, I'm 6'3", I'm 228 pounds when I got drafted.
Yep.
Within probably, you know, 4 or 5 months later, I'm now 240, and I'm playing safety. They don't have safeties wearing 240. But I knew I wasn't the fastest guy in the world, but I knew I was smart enough to make a tackle. You know, I wasn't going to chase Bo Jackson down the field because Bo's running 4.2 and I'm running 4.6. I'm not going to catch him. But I could catch Bo Jackson in between the tackles before he gets started. So I used to stick my head in there and I'm going to make a play. And then when I start making those plays, people start recognizing that, you know what? This big old guy can play. I wasn't a linebacker. I may have had the linebacker body, but I was a defensive back. And the NFL was not ready for me to play safety in the NFL at 245 pounds. Our Super Bowl year in 1989, Super Bowl 23, I got on a scale at 255 that morning because we went down to Florida and was there for 2 weeks, and we forgot to practice football. We were eating so much. But you know what, though? You wouldn't have never known that I weighed 255 in the Super Bowl because I went out there with 14 tackles, a caused fumble, a pass breakup, had a chance to be the MVP and probably would have won that game. But I did that because, like you said with Khalil Mack, I don't know if I say that word to prove it anything. I just wanted to show people that I belong. And I think that's what Khalil did. I belong here. I'm the 46th best player in football. Come on now. I'm better than that. So let me show you that you messed up. And just like when I got drafted, I used to say to myself, and I was a 78th player pick in the 1985-86 draft. There were 5 safeties picked before me. And I said to myself, all them teams that passed me up, I'm going to show you that I could play. And when I started playing and we would play against those teams, those coaches, some people that was part of that program go, dude, man, how did we miss you? I'm still here. You just went right by me, but it's okay. So that's what I try to tell young men today, even the young ladies that are playing sports. My daughter plays softball at Thomas More here in Kentucky. And she wasn't the best softball player, but she can run. And I don't know where she got that speed from because she didn't get it from her daddy. But she could run. And guess what she did?
For your size, you were pretty quick, David.
Hey,
for your size.
Hey, Dave. So there's a difference between fast and quick. The fast guys run track. The quick guys get from A to B. That was me. I was from A to B. Now, it took me a while to get to C, but from A to B, I was pretty good.
Hey, gentlemen, let me bring you back. I want to talk Arizona State football going forward here. And David, there was and Scotty, I've got two defensive specialists here, one that played and coached it, and obviously one that was an All-American and All-Pro. One of the things we looked at in the past couple of weeks, David, that you weren't thrilled about a couple of weeks ago is, and Scotty, we have a wonderful defensive player, last name Soleil, and he's been averaging anywhere from 15, 18, 17, 20. One game he had 22 tackles. And then the next game, he had hit all those tackles by himself. And then David went and okay, he's got 22 tackles. The next guy had 5. David, one of the stats I looked at this week is Soleil did have 12 tackles, 5 were solo. Then the next guy on the team had 9. There were 2 guys with 8, 2 guys with 7, a guy with 6. So the defense brought it as a defense. So here we come back, we win a game that I'm sure how many people thought we would win it. We have a bye week. We're going to be playing Stanford, who happens to be currently last in the Pac-12. If I'm not mistaken, Dave, they are last. After that, we go to Colorado. They're near the bottom. Then we play UCLA, who we saw this weekend in what they did to Utah and what Utah did to us. How do we take this momentum, Scott? How do we take this momentum, David, into the next couple games and build a team that does believe? This podcast is called Believe in Arizona State. We're starting to take me as a coach, take me as a player. What's happening in the next week to prepare them for the next 3 weeks?
Well, as a coach, I think it's the most important thing for the young coach, first-time coach, running backs coach, stepping forward and getting a win like this. That's lightning in a bottle. And whatever got you there, that's what you repeat. It's tenacity, it's hustle, it's echo to the whistle type of play. And you don't try to make anything fancy. You go in now you beat a team that's in the top 25. You showed that you have the caliber of character and class and athleticism to play with a team like that. Now you go into these other teams, you take the week off, but you don't change anything. You keep them on the same schedule. You don't get them high, you don't get them low, you keep them steady. They go in, play against a team that's probably in the same type of rebuilding or situation that Arizona found itself in before they let go of Coach Edwards. And you go in and you take care of business. You don't make it out to be anything, because by the time you get to UCLA, you should have a couple more wins under your belt. So now it wasn't a flash in the pan. This is something that we're winning because of what we do every single day.
Wow, man, I'm finna come out of retirement after listening to that, man. Because I'm telling you, it makes eligibility. Sense. Oh man, it makes sense. You don't change anything, even though you got a bye week. Your practice is probably going to be limited. You can't practice, like you normally do because you don't have a game on Saturday. But the reps and the attention span is still the same. It might be, instead of it being 2.5 hours during the week, it might be an hour during the week. What can we get in an hour? Still working hard, still preparing for Stanford in 2 weeks. But it has to be the same as it was the week before. Whatever we did against Washington and how we prepare for them, we got to prepare for Stanford in 2 weeks and do the same thing. And then once again, make it fun. It's got to be fun. Let me tell you something. I coached high school football. I started a college football team here in Cincinnati. I make it fun. I don't want to be out there for 3 hours and the kid's dragging and he's sagging and he's not really into practice. Make it fun, man. Let's have some competitive stuff with the O-line and D-line, the DBs and the receivers, the running backs and the linebackers, the tight ends and linebackers. Make it fun. And when you make it fun, kids are going to perform for you. As long as you're doing your job. And we said it the day before, if you do your job, If everybody on that team does their job, they're going to be successful. When one guy steps out and thinks he's bigger than the other guy, you're going to have a problem. And sometimes, there's going to be some guys. We talk about the Soleil on defense. The guy's probably got 100 tackles already, because he's been averaging 19, 20 tackles a game. So, but once again, he might be getting more attention at his position than the other guy at linebacker. But here's the thing. As long as he can keep that guy in the game, in the moment, and doing his job, let me tell you something, man. I played in many games where I made 15 tackles in the game, and some I made 2. And I would get a reporter come to me and say, David, where were you? I was on the field just like everybody else. But this game, I only had 2, but I had 15 the week before. So once again, as long as this coach keeps it fun, keeps everybody's spirits up, and don't change nothing. I mean, you might add something to it, but don't back down. As long as they keep that focus, man, they'll be ready for Stanford. And then when it comes to UCLA down the road, remember, one game at a time, one day at a time, and they'll be okay.
Well, Scott, David, I'm looking at their schedule and just realized it. Next game, 2 weeks, Stanford away, Colorado away, UCLA at home, then Washington State away. So here they have this nice win. 3 of the next 4 major games here coming up are away. Take me through that prep. Take me through that mindset.
Well, I think the away game, you always make sure that you take enough home with you.
Yes.
See, and coming off of that previous philosophy, it doesn't matter if you're playing at home. It doesn't matter if you're playing away. That's a 100-yard field. If you bring the same energy, the same dudes that got you the win this past weekend, yeah, the fans are going to be great, but it's not the fans. That's all coming from the inside. And if you don't have fans cheering for you on the sideline, you make sure that your arms are linked on the sideline and everybody is all 55, 56, whatever they travel, are sitting there. When the offense is up, the defense is up. When the defense is up, the offense is up. When the specialists aren't off, sipping cocoa somewhere, they're up until they come out. So that's where it all is. I talk about bring, the bring of a person, that which brings you along. And you have to take that with you wherever you go. And that's what I'm saying, is that there's no such thing as home or away games. You get to go, and there's some challenges where you play, sleep might be changed, but as long as you keep it fun now, like David was saying, on the road, they play their video games, they hang out in the rooms together, they eat together, they take a little team walkabout together, talk with their position coaches, hit the bed, get up in the morning, eat a good breakfast, get in there, play, go home. It's a business trip that you can have some fun, have some fun with it along the way as well.
Well, you're right, man. It is. It's very important too to have that camaraderie with your players. When I was a head coach at the high school and the college, I tried to get to know everybody by their name.
Yep.
In the work that I do today, I'm inside the jail and I work with young men and women who are incarcerated. And I've seen thousands and thousands of them. And I tried my best to remember everybody's name. And if I didn't know your name, man, I'm calling you my guy or my girl. And I think that's what this Arizona State football team, we call this Believe in Arizona State. So Arizona State got to believe in themselves. So when they go out and play these teams, that they're fighting with their brothers on a weekly basis. When they get into a game, they're fighting that game with their brothers, believing in their coach, trusting their coach to put them in position to make plays. My defensive coordinator when I played with the Bengals was Dick LeBeau. Dick LeBeau, let me tell you, man, he and Willie Shaw, so obviously the dad of head coach at Stanford, Willie Shaw was my secondary coach at Arizona State. Those guys believed in David Fulcher. They put me in positions to make plays. And all I wanted to do was reward them for putting me in the game. I didn't want to disappoint them. I didn't want to disappoint my dad. I didn't want to disappoint my coaches. So I wanted to make sure I did my job. So when they asked me to blitz, I had to get home. There were times I would jump over linemen just to get there because the coach called my number. I sacked Joe Montana in the Super Bowl. I went to Dick LeBeau and I said, Coach, I'm playing man-to-man on this tight end. He never looks up at me. He always blocks down on the end. I'm going to coordinate with the end and say, listen, you take him man-to-man, I'm coming off the corner. LeBeau told me, if you see it, go get it 33. And sure enough, I did it, and I sacked Montana in the Super Bowl. And that's the kind of relationship that players should have with their coaches. believing in each other to the point where if I see something, coach let me go get it. And Arizona State did that against Washington. That interception for a touchdown by the DB from Arizona State, that 7 points was the difference in them beating Washington. So, Scott, you said it, man. It is important to believe, is important to work, your work ethic, your communicating skills with your players and your teammates will push you over the top. And I really like, man, I'm glad I met you. I'm glad you're on our podcast. You know, David's been my D squared, the other guy, the other D. We've been talking about you, man, and we've been wanting to get you on here for a while, but you're here today, man, and I really appreciate you coming out and talking to us.
Well, thank you very much for your time, guys. I really do. I appreciate it.
Scott, I'll give you have any question for David Fulcher before we pop off this?
I do. When you were in Cincinnati, did you play with Mouse McNally?
Jim McNally, yes, I did.
Coach McNally is a
Coach McNally is a clown, man.
He's a UB grad. He's a UB grad. He grew up, went to high school with my father, the whole deal. So we've had a lot of Mouse around here for a long time. But boy, some of the things he used to talk about with Anthony Munoz and all the he mentioned your name quite a bit. Just that Super Bowl year, and it's just great to meet you and really love talking to you. I love what you guys are doing. I have a real love for my college, University of Buffalo, and Maurice Lindquist is doing a great job here. But you can really see with alumni like you and promoting programs like this is also going to help recruitment. Yes. And just that the name is bigger than just the place you go. It's something you carry in your heart. So thank you guys very much for the opportunity to be here.
Appreciate you, man. Thank you, brother. Have a blessed day too.
Scott, thank you so much for what you shared today. If anybody would like to get a hold of you, why don't you give people a quick way to get a hold of you?
Well, I'm at www.ubring1.com, ubring1.com. And basically what I do is I ask young kids, I say, that cell phone in your pocket, what would happen if that communications device fell? They freak out. We all do, right?
Yes.
But you're the most complicated communications device you'll ever own. And when was the last time you upgraded how you talk to you, about you, and for you? If you've never done that before, that's what I do. So you can check me out at ubring1.com. I'm on Facebook at Coach Pilkey, and you go from there. But guys, thank you very much for your time, and good luck,
brother.
Thank you.
Arizona State. Thank you, man. Appreciate you.
They're going to win this week. They're going to win this week. I'm predicting a win for Arizona. Oh, they're on a bye week.
Arizona State has the week off, but
yes, sir, man. Thank you, my friend.
We're going to celebrate that win from last week. Thanks, Scott.
See you later, bud. Take care. Right. That was really good, man. That believe in Arizona State, and we believe in our guests. We believe in Scott. And what I like about talking to Scott, man, was the recruiting process of getting a young man or young lady out there. This isn't just for the guys, it's for the girls as well. That there are things you're supposed to do while you're being recruited. There are things you're supposed to do to get recruited. There are a lot of people out there, man, that spend lots of money, thousands and thousands of dollars to do the wrong thing. If you're going to do the right thing, spend your money on what Scott just said, because I didn't have that opportunity, Dave, when I was growing up. Like I said, man, I didn't have the money, number one. Number two, I didn't have the equipment that everybody has today. Like I said, my weight gain was eating my mom's food, and running around the streets and maintaining my body weight. I had no idea how much I was supposed to weigh or how much weight I was supposed to bench press. But what I did know was that I kept it simple enough that it made it simple and easy for me to be the athlete that I was. And I knew I wasn't going to put any performance enhancement drugs or things in my system to get bigger or to get faster. It was just a naturally God-given talent for me. And my dad, it's funny when I say this, my dad was like the Williams sisters' dad, Henry. My dad's name is Henry. My dad, he made us work out. He made us do things. He didn't let us sit on the couch and do nothing.
Right.
I played tennis.
Look where you are, David. Look where you are.
I mean, my kids, my son, my daughter, Kayla, they weren't going to sit around and do nothing. You're going to do something with yourself. Besides, if it's not an athlete, being an athlete, You're going to do something with yourself because you're made that way. You're made from your family. You're made
David,
from
your
your dad.
daughter kicked your butt to go back and finish college.
She did.
So
If it wasn't
again,
for
you
her, I
didn't
wouldn't have
raise
got that.
shrinking violet. She said, "Dad, go back and finish your degree."
She
And you
made
went
me
back
do
and
it.
finished your
Yeah,
degree.
she made me do it. And when she came off that stage at Thomas More, she said, "Dad, you need to go finish." And
I'd rather fight you than her. If you've ever met Kayla
Oh, I know.
or Judy or
Oh, I
Judy,
know,
I
man.
think I'd
I
rather
know.
fight you than either of the women in your family.
And trust me, man, we lead by example. You know, we wanted Kayla and David to be the best that they could be, whether it's a athlete, whether it's a graphic designer in Kayla, whether it's a dad who's coming from the Air Force and doing some work now with UPS. You know, David and Kayla are the example of what their father was back in the day. And I
Well,
continue to keep doing that. And that's
as
why
we
we do
wind
what we
this
do
up,
here.
as we wind this up today, I just want to say this. This should make sense to you. I've only invited two people. As you know, I'm an award-winning national public speaker.
Yes, you are.
There's only two people in the country that I've ever invited to share stage and take half of my time on stage. One is my co-host and my dear friend, which is you. The other was Scott. I met Scott in Buffalo. I had an event coming up in 2 weeks. I said, Scott, come back and share the stage with me in a couple of weeks. This is a number of years ago. He came back. We spoke at a local college in Buffalo, and we killed it. Why? Because he had that same mentality 15 years ago, if not more energy, a little bit more. You know, we're both more youthful and in
Yes.
basically the primes of what we were doing then. But there's only two people who have given up half of my stage time to, you and Scott. And I think you can see why I've wanted to have him on as a guest. And what I love about this podcast, David, is if you go back and look, we had Thurman, then we had the coach from Trine, and then we have Joe Kelly, and then we had
Munoz.
some, and we've had Anthony Munoz.
Yes.
Come on, the arguably, and if I don't even think it's arguably the best offensive lineman that's ever played the game.
Yes.
We're bringing people to other people to bridge a gap in their life that might be missing. So not only are we believing in Arizona State, and look what's happening. I believe in energy. I'm not a new age lunatic, but I'm telling you this, I believe in energy. And maybe what we're doing too is creating some positive energy in a fan base and getting people to believe. And they just knocked off. And by the way, as we look today, Washington is nowhere to be found in the top 25. So you might be getting a text from our last guest, Joe Kelly, going, I'm never
Yes.
coming on your show again.
Yes. Because I'm telling you, man, and you said it, Dave, we're bridging gaps. We're bridging gaps. You know, when we first started this Believe in Arizona State podcast, different hosts, but I knew, because I had talked to you before even getting this thing started, and I know you were busy at doing the things you do, man. And you are, you know, you're a humble guy, and I was looking for another David Fulcher, even though I got David Coleman to be on this podcast with me. But my thought process is your thought process. And what we think and how we see things, we kind of see it the same. One of us are a little bit older than the other, but our thought process is about the same. And that's why I wanted to team up with you, because we're given a different perspective, not just in the football world of life, but the everyday life and world, or the everyday world in life with people that are listening to this podcast. Because, you know, not everybody is developed the same. Not everybody looks the same. But if you get two people like you and I speaking the same language, giving that information out to the people who listen to our podcast, that someday it might be their son, it might be them at work, it might be them in a relationship. We are talking about building the gap in the bridge of making helping someone be successful, not by just how much money they make, but successful in life. And that's what we bring.
I'm very humbled and very honored by what you just said. And two things as we bring this to a close. I have a dear friend named Debbie Gardner. You might have known Debbie when she lived here in Cincinnati, one of the top
Yes.
self-defense experts in the world.
Yes.
She's the president and owner, her and her husband, Mike, of the Survive Institute. And she calls me one of five. Whenever she sends me something, it's OOF. She believes you are the five people you surround yourself with. She believes that you are. And what we're doing, not only on this podcast, but in life together, I believe we're heading in the right direction, creating
Yes.
some really positive energy. And given that, I believe you have an event coming up
I do.
soon where people can walk away with a figurine of you whose head
Yes.
bobbles around. Is that correct?
Yes.
You want to tell people about that?
Yeah. So, oh man, shoot. Let me make sure I get all the information right. This will be believe my fourth bobblehead. Cincy Bob, Cincinnati. I think it's Cincinnati Bob, but Cincy Bob put together a bobblehead of me. I had a bunch of people say, "Why am I throwing the football?" No, I'm not throwing it. It's actually me intercepting a ball in the game, and I picked the ball up and saluted it to the fans of Cincinnati. So that's what the bobblehead looks like. This Saturday, I will be at Heirloom Framing from 12 to 3 here in Cincinnati. You don't have to be present to get a bobblehead. You can contact them to get it. I'll be there from 12 to 3. The proceeds of the bobblehead are going to my foundation, the David Folger Foundation, benefiting those who are affected by multiple sclerosis. Just another opportunity for me to give back to the community. I was approached about making a bobblehead, and there's probably about 12 of us former Bengals, led by the best lineman that ever played the game, and Anthony Munoz, to Tim Crumride, to Isaac Curtis, who just went into
Sure.
the Ring of Honor
Ring of
here in
Honor.
Cincinnati. So there's a lot of things going on in Cincinnati, and we're just blessed. I'm blessed here in Cincinnati, but I'm also blessed too that Believe gave me an opportunity to put this podcast on for the Sun Devils and just talking football. But as you can see, we talk a little bit more about football. We want to see the Sun Devils win, but we're also thinking about bridging the gap between, whether it may be black and white, it may be, high and low, it may be, skinny and fat, it doesn't matter. We just do what we do because we love doing it. That's why we had, Scott on, and Scott was awesome, man. And once again, recruiting is a very, very tough process for people that don't know. People spend thousands of dollars on camps. They spend a lot of money on this. Listen to what Scott just said on this podcast. If you missed it, go back to it and run it over 2 or 3 times and listen to what he's saying, because it's important for any athlete, boy or girl, tall or short, that here's what you need to do to get yourself prepared and focus on you more than anything else. Take care of your responsibility, get you better, and you're going to be a better person in the long run.
I told you last podcast, David, I think by the time we're done with this year's podcast, we're going to have an all podcast team.
Yes.
I think we might have found our coach.
Yes, I think so. I think so.
Our next podcast, we will prepare for Stanford.
Yes.
And possibly even for Colorado. And I know
Yes.
that you have a couple of wonderful guests that you're excited about that you can say or keep silent until that day. But
very, very excited about the Stanford guest. I think it's going to be something that I think a lot of people will go, "Oh my gosh, really?" Yes, you're going to love it. You're going to love it.